Well, thank you all. Obviously, today is an exciting day for us, House Republicans. We've expanded our majority. We are ready to get to work on the issues that Minnesotans care about. For us, obviously, the number one issue is going to be the health insurance crisis that many Minnesotans are facing. We know that it's going to take some short-term relief and also some long-term reforms to make a lasting, meaningful impact on making sure those people get some stability in the marketplace and we relieve that crisis. Beyond that, it's the state budget and making sure that we're efficiently and effectively using the dollars that our taxpayers have given us and making sure that we're holding the governor and his agencies accountable to be as efficient and effective and provide the best service that they can to Minnesotans. So with that, we'll take some questions.
Did you want to make a statement first?
Go ahead.
Nope, I was just going to say the same thing. That's why we're here. We know why the voters elected us. They want us to work on health care. They want tax relief, and they want us to hold government so that it's efficient and accountable, as the Speaker said. So we're going to do that this session.
How quickly do you anticipate the health insurance legislation to start moving, especially the short-term relief?
Our hope is to have the short-term bill moving next week off of the House floor, and of course we have to work with a Republican Senate and a Democrat governor, so we need to be flexible in making sure that we're adapting to get the best product for Minnesotans, and that's what. But we are committed to doing it as soon as possible.
Senator Gazelka said he wants some reform in that first bill as well. Do you agree with that, having some reform and not just the financial aid?
Well, I think we have to have some reform, whether it happens now or in a later bill. I think we can certainly be open to that, but we need to get some help to these Minnesotans that are facing these high rate increases because of MNsure and Obamacare. So while we ultimately have to reform MNsure, we can't leave it the way that it is long term. Otherwise, we're going to be back in the same situation on January 1st of 2018, and we don't want that to happen.
Do you think you'll be sending, working with the governor to craft this, or sending it, passing a bill off the legislature and then seeing how he responds?
Well, we're really open to either way, and we certainly are going to reach out to the governor. I'm going to try to meet with him this afternoon, even to see if what his preference is, but we need to have the governor's input. We want a bill that's going to get signed by the governor. That's very important. A bill that passes here that provides relief but doesn't get signed doesn't provide any Minnesotans relief, so we do need to do that, but we also know that there are some things that can be done to help people get better access to their doctors and to their clinics and to their hospitals. Right now, we're in the third of the year, and Minnesotans are going to find out very shortly when they try to make appointments to see their doctors for ongoing continuing cancer treatments that their doctors are no longer covered under their plan and their policy. So we need to take action on that just as swiftly as we do on premium relief.
What does it say? You mentioned this in your remarks. What does it say that Republicans now control the House and the Senate coming back here this year?
Well, I think Minnesotans have given us, really entrusted us with a big responsibility, and with that comes, the necessity to lead and to make sure that we're solving the problems that Minnesotans care about. And number one, we think this election was a referendum on Obamacare and on MNsure here in the state of Minnesota. So we're ready to work with the governor, but we know that the Minnesotans who are affected by this need serious change. Now, it may be easier to get a bill on the governor's desk having a Republican Senate. With a one-seat majority, it may be tricky for them, and we'll have to see how able they are at passing bills over there, and certainly I think we'll all see how that unfolds together.
How complicated is the health insurance issue, given you don't know what Congress is going to do about the Affordable Care Act?
I think that's an issue that adds a level of complexity. Congress will most likely not take action in time for us to need to take action to make sure that we impact the plans that people are able to buy on January 1st of 2018. So I think that we'll need to take action probably by mid-March or sooner if possible on long-term reforms. I think that it's very unlikely that Congress is going to take action by that time. So hopefully they can either show us their cards a little bit and tell us what they're planning to do, or start kind of approving some of the waivers from Obamacare that would give us the flexibility to put a Minnesota solution in place.
Mr. Speaker, I was in the back
Sure.
of the pack.
Yep.
I may ask a question. It's already been asked. The governor earlier today said he wanted to pass his rebate plan by the end of this week. Is that possible? Is that something the House is going to take up?
I think just, and I had initially said that I wanted to do the same to pass some relief for Minnesotans who are affected by this by the end of this week. It's just in the way that we conduct business, it's not likely. We don't even introduce bills until Thursday, so we're going to probably introduce the bills Thursday. We do think that it's very important to have public hearings, to make sure that the bill is heard in public committees where the public can actually have input. So we're going to do that at the end of this week and the beginning of next week, and we're going to pass a bill off the House floor by Thursday of next week.
In terms of other priorities, where do transportation, a bonding bill, tax relief, where does that all stand?
Well, I think the governor has indicated that he's going to send a tax bill and a bonding bill. My guess is they'll look very similar to the bills that were left on the table at the end of last session. We've got new chairs in our transportation committee and also in our capital investment committee, and we want to give them and the new members of the committee an opportunity to kind of wrap their arms around what the governor's proposing and also try to plot a path forward. And we need to give them some time to do that. Certainly, I think it's unfortunate that we've had a setback of 2 years without a major infrastructure bill. As far as the transportation is concerned, our priority in that last bonding bill was very much roads and bridges, and I think Minnesotans, particularly in greater Minnesota, are very concerned about the road and bridge infrastructure, so it's going to be a big priority of our caucus to try to get a long-term solution in place for roads and bridges, but it's going to be complicated. The governor's calling again for taking more money out of Minnesotans' pockets, and frankly, that's not the approach that Minnesotans expect, and I think this election should have been a strong message to the governor on that.
The approach on business taxes, the governor and you folks are going to talk to the chamber tomorrow night.
I think we want to see an economy in Minnesota that's growing and thriving that helps all Minnesotans, and frankly, we do need to reform our business taxes somewhat, but our priority is going to be on middle-class Minnesotans and making sure that they get relief. They've paid more money than we need into us, and I think we have the obligation to give some of that money back to help them.
Could you just clarify, the bill you expect on health care to pass next week, what's the scope of that bill?
Well, for us, that will be a short-term reform bill, I think, and of course, we're going to remain flexible on that, so it could change as we have conversations with the Senate, with the governor, but it will be a short-term reform bill that hopefully will provide some premium relief to those affected by this, but also start to tackle the access issues to make sure that people can continue their potentially life-saving cancer treatments and see their doctor at their clinic and at their hospital.
But not necessarily a reinsurance program or other broader reform to try to stabilize the market in that first bill?
Well, the way that I like to think about this is let's triage this and deal with issues that will affect people in 2017, and then maybe in a longer-term bill pass issues that will affect people for coverage starting on January 1st of 2018. And I think it's important. We do need to do both. I think everybody knows that. This is a real crisis for the Minnesotans that it affects, and we stand committed to solve the problem. But it's not just premium relief right now by writing a check to insurance companies. It's access issues as well that are very important. And remember that Democrats made promises that this was going to reduce the cost of health insurance and also that it was going to provide more choice and more access. And it's been the opposite. It's made health insurance for those affected much, much more expensive. And it's also meant in many cases they're not going to be able to see their doctor or their clinic. So we're concerned about that.
Mr. Speaker, if you folks get locked up on the long-term reforms, reinsurance or whatever it is, will you move ahead with a short-term relief?
We will move ahead with a short-term relief likely next week. That'll pass off the House floor. That's our hope. If that can contain some long-term reforms, great. If not, we will be passing another long-term reform bill, which will hopefully reshape that individual marketplace and provide the stability that it's going to need going into January 1st of 2018.
So if you can't get agreement on long-term reforms, you will move ahead next week with short-term?
We have to find agreement on long-term reforms, but it is a triage issue. We're going to have to do the short-term now and provide help to Minnesotans, but we also have to do the long-term reforms. And I don't think there's even a possibility we won't agree on long-term reforms. The governor absolutely must reform this, and he must agree to do that, or we're going to be back in the same position a year from now, and we can't have that.
But if they don't have an agreement on long-term reforms, my question is, are you going to move forward next week with the short-term relief?
Yes, the answer is yes.
And do you feel
Yeah.
like you've turned the page with the governor from last month? Are you taking a more positive, upbeat approach to?
I think with any relationship, it takes a little work once in a while, and one of my criticisms with the governor, and I said this to him in person when we met last week, is I want him to participate more actively in the legislative process. One of the things that we've heard from people is they don't like when business bunches up at the very last few hours of session. So we need to make sure that we're conducting the business of Minnesotans in a transparent way in committee during the legislative session, and we need the governor and his commissioners to be active participants in that process in order for Minnesotans to feel like they were included in the process. All right. Thank you all.